So something that I've never gone into too much detail on is that Armada was the last Transformers show I watched to completion growing up. That wasn't because I thought it was so bad that I didn't want to see what came next. It's been slightly over 20 years since I watched it last, but I remember as a kid loving it. I have vague memories of being weirded out by some stuff. Like back then I was just like, why is Bumblebee getting called Hotshot now? And I think for sure I must have been confused by Megatron being about as different as physically possible, but then again, maybe not. I was a huge Beast Wars fan, as you all know, and I had seen Rid 2001, so I was used to big changes being done to Megatron. Perhaps that didn't cause me any consternation whatsoever. I don't know. It's been so long since I watched the show that I can't really say for sure that I even knew that Beast Wars Megatron was supposed to be a different dude with the same name as a young lad. So yeah, none of that was what stopped me from watching the series that came after Armada growing up. Really, it was just something that I don't even know that kids today can honestly relate to. Scheduled programming! Basically what happened is that I didn't know that Transformers Energon started airing, so I missed the first 5 episodes, and I was completely lost when I finally did tune in. Which I wasn't used to with a Transformers show, and since there was no easy way to go back and watch the episodes I'd missed, I just gave up halfway through that one episode and I kind of fell out of the fandom, becoming far more interested in video games for the next decade plus. But I still have fond feelings for this show and these designs, so let's see if they live up to my memories. Now, if you would, your likes, please give. And if you enjoyed this video by the end and you aren't subscribed already, please consider it. And yes, I saw the reveals, I'll do a video about them on Wednesday. It's Legacy Armada Megatron. And look, I'm gonna be honest with you, this figure does a few things wrong or suboptimally, but overall, this is an absolute home run, and I am super happy to have it. So starting off, yep, this is the spitting image of the dude. And not only that, but this thing is fucking gorgeous. They went all out on this guy. I mean, I'm clocking 5 different colors of plastic on this thing and loads of very shiny paint. And you know me, I'm not much one for paint. But you also know me. Shiny thing good. The only complaint I actually have about the paint is the lack of a Decepticon symbol he has in the center of this little fake slider on his chest. I know he's already rocking it proud on his shoulders, but it just feels empty how it is. I also have to say that I love, no matter what I do with the cannon, it both looks wrong and cool as hell. Does this design work as Megatron? I don't know. It does have great big bad guy leader vibes, but maybe it works better as some version of Galvatron. Which is interesting because Galvatron is exactly how I would describe how this feels. If you have Kingdom Galvatron, imagine that in hand, but honestly nicer. I think it stems from the purple being the same plastic they used on that, but the green stuff feels more like Siege Optimus, which you know I'm living for. And before I forget, here he is next to his whipping boy, Starscream. And yeah, that just hits so right. Hasbro, get me a Demolisher and a Cyclonus, please. I needs it. And thank God these were their own molds. I can't even imagine how much worse these would be if they were like a retool of the Siege Megatron and the Earthrise Starscream. Truly, that would be the darkest timeline. The figure isn't the biggest thing ever, but it feels absolutely huge, what with the way he cheats a lot with the shoulder pylons to make Ultra Magnus insecure and the head pincers. You can actually really diminish that by folding down the shoulder treads, which is both a huge pro and a mild con of the figure. Pro, you can really change how this looks to suit you, and it also reorients the arm joint so you can achieve a wider array of poses than you could with, say, Legacy Laser Optimus Prime. Con, there is literally no lock-in for some reason. Anytime you try to do anything with these arms, the shoulders are going to try and fold out to his sides, which is really annoying. Also, another con is that they can't rotate forward or back, which I can understand why they don't, but I can also think of a joint that would have allowed them to do that, which would have been way more dynamic. Ultimately, these shoulders are not as bad as they could have been, and they're also not as good as they could have been. And the head also has a pro and a con to it too. On the one hand, you can remove the head spikes, which I think does make it feel like a far more Megatron-y design. So that's super interesting if you aren't really attached to the way it's supposed to look, and you want something that feels a little more like the idea of the character. Also something that feels mildly more like movie Megatron specifically, what the fuck? Am I crazy? Is this just me? Why does this feel like they're gonna retool it into ROTF Megatron? The con is that these don't like to stay on at all. It takes nothing to knock these off, and personally I think it would have been nice if these had just a little bit more grip. Anyways, doing all this makes him feel less like a giant when compared to Starscream. However, then you try to put the Star Saber in his mitts and he just goes back to being enormous. This is less the Star Saber and more the Star Kitchen Knife. Normally at about this point, I'd start talking about the head sculpt, but I've got a whole heap of gimmicks to get through. The dumbest of which being his left hand, which is posed in a claw that amazingly can still hold stuff just fine as a reference to how his old toy had a dagger that extended from that palm. He can also armpit his cannon, on both sides. Tragically, there are lockouts on these, which for some reason are uneven. On his stage left side, it goes until the barrel of the cannon is hanging by his leg, and on the stage right one, it goes until it's just under his arm. I guess what I'm saying here is that he's got no Megadong. Truly, that would have been a weapon to surpass Metal Gear. Now, while he's lost out on the Megadong, he does get the Mega Punch Dildo. This is the punch dildo to end all punch dildos. Where'd he buy that? Bad Dragon? It's like he's trying to make all other wielders of the dildo of punching jealous. He can then also do this stupid bullshit where he gets the Gun Papoose! This little part can pop up and spin, and I seem to remember that when he did this, the cannon would also rotate, but with the lockouts, it's just kind of stuck ping-ponging back and forwards, which is just a little disappointing. But it's still fun that he can do this even if it's dumb as hell. And you know what? That's more gimmicks than probably almost any figure in the last 10 years, so that was a really enjoyable look back on the way toys used to be toys. Now as for the head, oh god damn, oh Jesus, this is pretty. They went to town on this. The sculpt is perfect, the paint is plentiful, the shiny thing good, the horns so silly. It captures his essence better than most figures I've ever seen. This feels like the head that should come on a masterpiece. I can't really say just how much I love this head. I often find myself since getting this just hypnotically staring at it. This takes every nice thing I had to say about the Armada Starscream's head and shits on it. In comparison to this, that just ain't cutting it anymore. This is like the gold standard of skull sculpts. So, this figure feels great and looks better. It's a gorgeous piece of work, awash in paint and details that screams, hey, we really are trying to earn your money this time. It's also the most accurate rendition of this character ever released. Not that there's too much competition for that. There's pretty much the original figure, the Combiner Wars one, which here's the two of them standing together before I forget. And then there's the Fans Hobby one, which a particular one of you guys, you know who you are, tells me is great, but is still hugely stylized. So yeah, top marks in accuracy, cool factor, and quality. But what of accessories? It doesn't have any, moving on. Yeah, I think they replaced accessories with gimmicks, which, honestly, you know what? I will happily take that trade a lot of the time. As for posability, it's pretty good. Head has a little more side-to-side than normal, and maybe a little more up-down. Together, they're very expressive. Shoulders can pull a bit more than a 90, though you are going to start banging into his horns if you try to do that, and the other ranges are unfortunately limited, but a small number of ranges can be returned by maneuvering the whole assembly, and you get even more out of them if you untransform him, though, you know, ugly. Elbows pull a good bit more than a 90, though it's a little deceptive, with the shoulder armor making it look like a lot more. Wrist swiv and narcissa wrists, and as always you can use those two types of joints together to make sword-wielding wrists. Ratcheted hips are unimpeded forward and slightly back, and unratcheted hips are unimpeded out to the side. Normal 90 knees, and feet with a strong pivot as well as an incredibly stiff toe down and heel down. So very good. The shoulders are hands down the worst part, but they are nowhere near as bad as on other figures with similar bodies. And then the knees are a little boring. But everything else is at least above average. And then the transformation is also really nice. And I use the word nice very specifically. It's not trying to blow you out of the water, it's not trying to astound you. It's just doing what it does in a way that's not overcomplicated, but one that's also complicated enough to not be boring. There's really nothing you haven't seen before, it's all just a nice, clean version of standard steps. If you ignore how damn tight the toe tilts are, that is. 6 out of 10 transformation that makes you go, that was pleasant. Stomping the crap out of the Siege Megatron on this front, and also making for a far cooler, far more believable H-Tank too. This thing looks so sick. It's like the monster truck of tanks. Though it is a little lame that he's just hiding his face behind his turtleneck. I really want these parts to flip open, but they're just molded in place, so, you know, 0 out of 10. But it's got a mostly working turret, so that's both really good and disappointing. Just give us the Megadong, you cowards! It would have been nice if the double little machine gun here could have angled forwards, but that's not the biggest deal. And something really fun I discovered is that if you plug the Star Saber into Megatron's barrel, it looks remarkably like he's firing an Energon Sabo. So that's super cool and fun. Also, behold! The cannon. Truly, a weapon to surpass Metal Gear. Don't lose the tip of the cannon, that would be really sad. Roll's really good too. This is a top-tier H-Tank mode that shames pathetic lesser H-Tanks like Siege Megatron, Earthrise Megatron, and honestly, are all H-Tanks and Transformers just versions of Megatron? So look, I don't know what to tell you. I am enamored with this thing. Legacy Evolution leaders have been the bests of their waves, and this is no exception. This is truly an excellent figure that makes everything around him look just that little bit worse for not being him. It's a nearly perfect looking rendition of his robot mode that really only suffers from one too few Decepticon badges and horns that have both a cool function and a deep-seated desire to fall off. That's high quality with beautiful paint, it poses solidly despite its shoulders, it's honestly better than average on that front, it's got a slew of gimmicks in place of accessories, and that's a trade-off that I'm not only willing to make, but I think we got the way better deal here. As there's way more to do with this thing than just slap a gun in his hand, unless you count that silly punch dildo, though it's too bad that the character doesn't have his knife. The transformation isn't one that I'm chomping at the bit to do every time I handle this thing like I will be with some others, but it's never one that I'm upset to go through. I get to the end of it and I'm just happy. And the tank mode is just a badass beast of a thing that looks so damn cool, and has most of the functionality you could possibly want it to. The only more I could reasonably ask of it is to have the turret fully rotate, and in an ideal world, those flaps would both open, and the cannon would reciprocate with that good old choom action. So overall, this gets my highest type of recommendation. Buy it. You will not be sorry. Hasbro did everything they reasonably could to earn your money on this one. And to that end, they made it a micro masterpiece. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.